Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, welcome to part 2 of our formula for happiness, or how to be happy whatever the weather. Both are applicable in this case. In part 1 we looked at the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which gives an amazing message about how to deal with the good and the bad in our lives. Now we're going to break it down about how we can implement it. The first thing to note is that Allah has told us in the Qur'an, that roughly translated, that He tests people with good and He tests people with difficulty in order to see which of them turn back. So it's really important that we recognize that both the good that we're given and the bad that we're given, the difficulties that we're given by Allah, these are tests for us. So the Prophet ﷺ said that amazing is the affair of the believer. In every affair of the believer there is good, but this is only for the believer. When something good befalls him, when something he likes happens, he does shukr to Allah, and that's better for him. So now let's look at how to do shukr. The first thing we have to understand about shukr is an amazing concept in our deen. SubhanAllah. Do we realize that Allah tells us in the Qur'an that were you to try to compute, to try and imagine, to try to estimate the blessings that Allah has given you, we could never even compute them. We could never even estimate them. The number of blessings Allah has given us, we could never even estimate. We could not even guess how many blessings Allah has given us. And shukr is so important that the one thing that shaitan wants us not to do is shukr. Shaitan wants us to not be grateful. We know in the Qur'an that there is a conversation between shaitan and Allah, in which shaitan says to Allah that I will attack them on Sirat al-Mustaqim from the front and the back and the left and the right, and you will find most of them ungrateful. Every Friday when we go to the Jummah khutbah as khatibs, what do we say? We say, washkuru li wa la takfurun, fadhkuruni yadhkurkum, washkuru li wa la takfurun. Remember me and I will remember you. Be grateful to me and do not reject faith. So the opposite of doing shukr is serious. But it's really important that we understand everything we have in our lives, we do shukr to Allah for our health, for our security. SubhanAllah, even though through the pandemic, we have had such amazing times during the pandemic that we've had ease compared to so many people. We've had ease in our countries compared to so many people around the world who are suffering during the pandemic. But I want to share one thing. Why the Prophet said amazing is the affair of the believer, and why this will keep us happy always. 2 things. I said one thing, I'm going to share 2 things. Number 1, what is the consequence of making shukr? The most amazing consequence of making shukr. In Surah Ibrahim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, He tells us roughly translated, that if you are grateful, I will give you more and more. So whatever we're going to do shukr for, if we're grateful for the wealth that we have, if we're grateful for the health that we have, if we're grateful for the security that we have, if we're grateful for our iman, if we're grateful for our Islam, if we're grateful for our deen, Allah will give us more. And the second consequence that guarantees us happiness. We said happy whatever the weather, and we said this is a formula for happiness. When you do shukr to Allah, what are you doing? You're remembering Allah. And if you're remembering Allah, what will happen? Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innal qulub. Indeed, in the remembrance of Allah, the hearts find contentment, happiness. So this is a formula to be happy whatever the weather, and a formula for happiness. I pray inshallah Allah gives me tawfiq to implement this in my life, and the same for you too. Jazakumullahu khairan, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.